Hello and welcome to Spotlight on Wawarsing. It is November 16th, 2017. I'm your host, Sean Reed. I'm here with Katie from Eat Smart, New York. And tell me a little bit about Eat Smart, New York.
Okay, so Eat Smart New York is actually a statewide program. So we operate all over the state, and every nutritionist is responsible for their particular county. So what I do is I do nutrition education all over Ulster County.
Is there an office you have anywhere if people wanted to find you?
Yes, that's a really good question. So we work through Cornell Cooperative Extension. In Ulster County, our office is in Kingston. So it's very close to the Hannaford in Kingston in the strip mall. If anyone wants to pop in, they are more than welcome. It's a storefront.
So what do you have for us today?
Well, first I'm going to tell you, I want to tell you a little bit more about the program and the kinds of topics I talk about, and I'm going to cook for you. So that's
delicious.
The plan. And you're going to help me.
So what is Eat Smart in depth? Like, what is the main core of what you're doing?
Eat Smart New York is actually a program that comes through the USDA. So it comes from the federal government, and it's SNAP education. So we target people that are eligible for or receiving SNAP, which is food stamps. And we try to educate people on how to eat healthier. And to us, that really means eating more fruits and vegetables, drinking less sugary drinks, so soda, iced tea, all the sugary drinks that you look
Mainly
like.
anything sold that isn't from the cow itself.
Well, there are other things. And I did not bring my sugary drink display, but we could certainly talk about that if you wanted.
All right.
And then our third goal is to get people to do more physical activity. So it's those three things together that are, the bulk of eating healthier. And if you can just even make a few little changes in your diet to eat more fruits and vegetables, drink less sugar or eat less sugar, and be more active, you're going to do a lot towards making yourself healthier and happier and have a better diet and a better lifestyle. So we also, we do a lot of education. So I go out into the community and I do either cooking demonstrations or I do workshops where we do activities where people will learn how to read the food label, for example.
Well, what else do you
do? What other topics?
Yeah. So
we talk about reading the food label. I talk a lot about eating healthy on a budget, which is really important because we're all on a budget. Everyone, it's bigger or smaller depending on how much money you have, but food, you can't not buy food. So it's really important to learn how to manage the money you have and still be able to buy healthy food with that. So that's one thing I talk about a lot. Talk about why we should eat more fruits and vegetables, which is kind of what I was going to talk more about today. Talk about why we should drink less sugary drinks. Talk about fast food. Talk about healthy snacks and whole grains. And, anything else that people have questions about.
So can you go into more about people on SNAPs or food stamps that you were talking about?
Yes. So we call it SNAP. SNAP is the official name for it. It stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And if you could flip to the next slide, please. I have a example here of, food stamps is the term everyone uses when we talk about SNAP. The official term is SNAP, but everyone just calls it food stamps. And this is money for low-income families, specifically to buy food. So it's not for rent or heating assistance or anything like that. It's just for food. And this is an example of how much money you could earn as a family and qualify for food stamps. So and it depends on your family size. So if you are a family of one person and you made $1,307 a month or less, you might qualify to get SNAP. If you are a family of three, the level goes up, and so it would be $2,213 a month or less. So there's a little bit more to it than that, but those are kind of the general guidelines. So I would encourage anyone who thinks they might qualify for SNAP to apply for that benefit, because it's just money into your household that you can use to buy food. And you would have to go to the DSS office.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind answering. Is there a way because I know people are embarrassed when they go get food stamps, is there a way for it to be confidential where people don't have to know?
Well, when you go to the DSS office, there is a lot of paperwork to fill out when you do the application. And I don't know all of the questions, but you have to show what your assets are, you have to show bank account information, things like that. So that's certainly not anonymous, but when you go to the grocery store to shop for food, what you get is a little card. They call it an EBT card, which stands for Electronic Benefits Transfer.
Right.
And it operates just like a credit card. So you swipe it just like a credit or debit card, and that money comes right off of your account. So it's not so obvious when you're paying with the SNAP dollars or just a credit card.
All right.
So one of the other things that I just wanted to mention that we do at Eat Smart New York is, in addition to the education, we do changes in the community that really support people making healthy decisions. So, for example, in Ellenville, if I come in and do a class about healthy eating and why we should eat all these vegetables, but then you go out onto Main Street or Canal Street, and there's not really a lot of healthy options.
Yeah, there's really isn't.
So it's really hard to make those healthy decisions when all you're presented with is fast food, pizza, those kinds of things. So we try to help workplaces, food pantries, all those kinds of places where you're getting food, or in the community schools, for example, to make little changes that would promote healthier options. So you want the healthy choice to be the easy choice. If you have all the information, but you go out and there's no healthy options, makes it 10 times more.
It makes it
difficult.
hard.
Yes, it does.
So I have a little question for you. Do you think it's the reason why we have fast food, because how impatient we've become with our technology?
Where we have fast food?
Yeah. Is that why fast food's now dominating?
I don't know why exactly, but I think people are in a bigger rush than they ever used to be. Fast food, we like the way it tastes. We like salty, fatty, and sugary things. Unfortunately, we're kind of programmed to like those things, and they're right there. If you walk down the main drag of almost any city, you're going to find a lot of fast
McDonald's
food.
and all that.
Yeah, so convenience is a really big factor. But I wish I knew. I wish I knew the reason. I'm just taking a guess at it here.
So clearly you're gonna cook for us, but
I am.
When did you start first getting into cooking?
That's an interesting question. My mother used to cook all the time, and my parents had a really big vegetable garden. I grew up in Rensselaer County, and I was a very, very picky eater. You would be surprised
I am too, and
now.
my parents criticized me from it.
Yeah, and I didn't like a lot of things for really no apparent reason. I would, pick out every little chunk of anything that I thought I didn't like. And it took a long time, but I eventually, kept trying new foods, and my parents were, not the kind of people to just give me what I wanted, which was probably some chicken nuggets or something. They just kept giving me the vegetables, and I eventually learned how to eat them. And I started getting interested in nutrition and cooking probably around the time I was in high school and then college, when I started having to cook for myself, really. I studied nutrition in college, but there's a big difference between learning about nutrition and learning how to cook. Because you might be able to do one, but not the other. And cooking is really, really important because you have to eat, you have to feed yourself.
You have to live.
Exactly. So let me show you the ingredients of what I'm going to make today. So we're making black bean quesadillas, and the ingredients are actually right here. So I have frozen broccoli, which I already thawed some of this out, and I'll talk about why I use frozen broccoli. I have tortillas. So these are whole wheat tortillas, like that. So tortillas are a little tricky. Any bread product is a little bit tricky because there's a lot of different options. There's wheat bread, there's multi-grain, all these different options. So what you want to look for on the label is something that says 100% whole wheat. So that's the best option. Whoops, I already made a mess.
Okay.
Okay, so this is my cheese, and I wrote "don't eat" on it because I left it in my refrigerator at my house, and I didn't want my husband to eat cheese on me. So here's my reduced fat shredded cheese, just for convenience. I have pinto beans, which are the low sodium option, and I already did take them out of the can and rinse them off, so they're right in here. And then I have my salsa. So this is like, it's mild. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're going to help me make this, and then you're going to taste it.
All right.
Okay. We're game? All right. So let's get started cooking. Then I'm going to talk more about why we should eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. So before I start, since I don't have a sink, I'm going to just hand sanitize myself so I have nice clean hands. But always the best option is if you're at home or you have a sink handy, you want to wash your hands with running water. Okay. So let that dry off. And the broccoli I have here, it's already chopped up, it's already cooked, and that's one of the reasons I really like frozen vegetables, because they're really convenient and most of the work is already done for you. I'm just going to move this out of the way. And then I have my beans. Okay, so this is about half of the can of beans. I already rinsed them off to get as much of the salt off as I can. And then my mild salsa. So I think the recipe is about a 1/4 cup. We'll show it in a few minutes. So measuring is not super important in a recipe like this. You can kind of make it the way you'd like. So the next part here is the mashing, if you wouldn't mind.
No, I do not.
Okay, so it's like a little bit of exercise mixed in there. I'm going to get this cheese out of the way. And so while you're mashing that, I always am encouraging people to eat more fruits and vegetables. And I'm going to ask you a question now. Do you actually know how many fruits and vegetables we're supposed to eat in a day?
Probably a lot. I honestly don't know. But
like, what would be a lot to you? Because a lot to me...
like a good 3 cucumbers worth.
How many cucumbers?
A good 3.
3 cucumbers worth? So like 3 servings?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's actually 5 servings a day of fruits and vegetables together. So that would be 3 vegetable and 2 fruit. So you're actually not too far off with 3 cucumbers. But it doesn't have to be cucumbers, of course. So you just want 3 vegetables a day and 2 fruits a day would be a minimum. And that's combined, fruits and vegetables. So this is a really good way to get at least a serving. Don't be shy. You want to get in there. And there's a lot of reasons we want to eat all our fruits and vegetables. Most people are not eating 5 servings a day. Probably, less than half of people, I would say, are eating as many fruits and vegetables as they should.
Do you think that, if you don't mind, do you think that's affecting mental health? Because I know when people are hungry, they get really aggravated.
Okay, so there's a difference between hunger and eating...
Well, you know what I mean. Like, when you eat right, you feel better.
Yes, okay, exactly. So, I think there is actually a link between, a really healthy diet that has a lot of fruits and vegetables and healthy foods and mental health. You do feel better. You might sleep better. You're definitely going to have less risk of chronic disease when you're eating enough fruits and vegetables and not too much of other things. So I think, your mental health and your physical health, it's all related. So it's very hard to separate one thing from another. But if you would go to the next slide, this is my list of, some of the reasons why I would want to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. A lot of people will just say, oh, well, they're healthy for us, which is true, but it's helpful to think sometimes of more specific reasons. So high vitamins and minerals, low fat, salt, and sugar, which are the 3 big things we find a lot in fast food and processed food, but that's lower in fruits and vegetables. And we also have a lot of fiber. And then you're going to have a lower risk of chronic disease, so things like diabetes, heart disease. A lot of people might, if you don't have them yourself, you might know someone in your family or a friend that has one of those diseases. And it helps to manage weight. And then most importantly, the last reason is fruits and vegetables taste good. A lot of people don't mention that when I ask them why we should be eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, but I think that's a really important reason. We like them. Okay, let me get in there and see how we've done. Thank you for your hard work. So these are big chunks of broccoli here.
So what's your favorite vegetable or fruit?
My favorite vegetable is cauliflower. My favorite fruit. That's a good question. I really like apples. Apples and oranges. That's not very interesting, but can't really go wrong with a good crunchy apple. But I don't discriminate. I eat a lot of different things. And that's one of the important things, is that you want to eat a variety. You know, you don't want to eat just the same. You don't eat cucumbers over and over and over.
Unless you only have cucumbers.
If you only have cucumbers, then you eat your cucumbers by all means. But if you have the option and you're in charge of the shopping or maybe planting a garden or something like that, you want to try to get a lot of different fruits and vegetables. So if you look down at your plate, actually here's a great example. We should see a lot of different colors on our plate, and this is showing the different food groups right here.
They've been really changing it recently too, because it was the pyramid, then the triangle.
There was the pyramid. Yeah, we haven't had the pyramid in a little while. So if you still have pyramid posters up at school, those are a good 7 years old at this point. Oof. So now what we have is the My Plate. So if you go to the next, so this is My Plate. This is what we have now. And this is more or less what I'm showing you right here on this plate, except the dairy is missing in this one I'm holding up. So if we look at our plate, half of it should be fruits and vegetables. So over the course of the day, you want to eat about half fruits and vegetables. And you also want it to be a variety. So you want all those different colors and different flavors so you can cover your bases and get a lot of different vitamins and minerals. So, all right, get this fired up here. I'm going to put this, I don't want to cover that microphone. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in the pan. It's a non-stick pan, but it helps it get a little bit nice and crispy on the bottom. We don't need to get crazy. And then I'm going to do 2 of these whole wheat tortillas. So I'm going to spread that around a little. And put them right here. So you want to be very careful when you're dealing with a hot pan. It's probably not a great idea to use your bare hands like I am. So we're going to actually start with the cheese. So I put the cheese right on the bottom just to get it to melt a little bit faster. And I'm going to cover about half of my tortilla. Not too crazy with the cheese. And then I'll do the other one. So there should be enough to feed us and the whole crew here.
I don't know if the crew deserves it right now.
Sure we do. Okay, so then this is the filling, this that you mashed so well for us. You could just put the beans in there kind of loose. The problem with that is when you go to flip it over, everything falls out. And I did learn that the hard way. And that's a lot of what cooking is learning things kind of the hard way. So if you feel like you're not a really great cook and you've screwed things up before, that's okay. That's how you learn. Then just next time you know what to do to make that same mistake again. Cooking does not have to be very complicated. You can improvise like I'm doing right now. Okay. So I'm going to take this and fold it over. So this is quesadilla. All right, so I'm going to try to, I don't know if you can see there, but it's just cooking up. And everything is actually cooked already. We're just heating it up at this point. So I'm going to wrap into my lid.
You were going to tell us about the broccoli. But
yes, thank you for reminding me. I always have so many things to say. So we'll just keep our eye on that, and we'll just flip it over in a minute. So the broccoli, like I said, people are not good at eating as many fruits and vegetables as they should. So I like to recommend frozen vegetables and frozen fruit a lot of times because one of the reasons that people aren't eating enough is because it takes a little bit of work sometimes. You have to wash your vegetables, you have to chop them, you have to cook them.
And that takes a good hour, depending on what you're cooking, though.
Depending on what you're cooking, how much you're making, how skilled you are at chopping and things like that. It doesn't always have to take an hour. Like if I made this with fresh broccoli, it probably wouldn't take an hour, but it would have to cook my broccoli before I put it in. Otherwise it'd be just kind of hard and crunchy. But the reason I like this is because it's already washed up, it's chopped up, everything is done, and I can actually just take out a small amount that I need and then put the rest back in the freezer. So I'm not wasting any. That's another problem sometimes if you're, just one person or just not getting to the vegetables you buy. If they're fresh and they go bad in the refrigerator and you throw them out, then they're just wasted. With this, you have a lot less food waste. The other good thing about frozen fruits and vegetables is that they probably have less sodium or salt and less sugar in the case of fruit. So it's just a vegetable frozen. And they're really cost effective usually. Okay, so let's check quesadillas. It smells a little burny to me. So flip it on the fold. Oops, it's well done. Why don't you go ahead and flip that other one? Please don't burn yourself.
Promise not to. It's not an open flame, so. Ooh, my bad.
That's okay. You could still burn yourself.
Okay, this is.
It's that non-stick pan.
Alright. Come on.
I'm sorry, this wasn't meant to be a...
It's improvised. Got it.
There we go.
Third time's a charm.
Alright, perfect. Okay, so let's switch again. And this will just be done in a second, and then I'm going to just cut it into quarters so you guys can all have a little taste. Alright, so let's get my ingredients out of here so you can see the final product. I'll keep my little mess off to the side. Okay. So one thing I would like to plug while I'm here is the Ellenville Farmers Market, which is now over for the season because it's November. But I do believe the plan is to run the farmers market again. So it usually starts late May to early June, and it's right on Center Market Street in the little park right in downtown. And that farmers market, it's a great place to go on Sundays and get fresh produce that's grown from local farms. And they do accept WIC checks and senior farmers market checks. And I think his plan is to accept SNAP benefits, but it's kind of in the works.
May I ask who is running the market?
His name is John Clark, and he's kind of in charge of the market. So if you want to help out at all, I think you can kind of look him up and contact him. All right, and I don't have my knife here. I'm just going to look for it really quick.
Okay.
Hold on one.
I'm using my right hand to do it, so it's confusing.
Okay, so prepared. And if you could flip to the next. So that's the recipe we just made, and then the next slide is the nutrition facts for this. So you can see a serving is half of one of these. So I'm going to actually cut them in quarters so I have enough to go around.
How many calories, if you don't mind me asking, would a teenager like me need every day?
A teenager like you. So usually we say, it depends. It depends on the person. That's a really good question because it's hard to know if you see this number 210. Is that a lot, a little? Usually 2,000 is a number we use that's kind of a nice round number and can apply to a lot of people. But a teenager, if you're still growing or you're very physically active, you might need more, like 2,200, 2,400. It really is going to depend on the person. Depends on how big you are. Someone short like me doesn't need as much as someone who's a lot taller. But if you go with 2,000, it's easy to remember. And you can also see here, we have a lot of fiber, which is really good, a lot of protein, and pretty good amount of calcium and iron as well. So let's take a look at the food groups we have. I put my ingredients away, but we had, so the broccoli
Was our vegetable.
is a vegetable.
We had salsa, which was the fruit, I should guess.
It's I would call it more like a vegetable because
Alright.
tomatoes are a little bit confusing, but more like a vegetable. We had beans, that would be our protein.
And then the tortilla would be the grain.
Tortilla would be the grain, and then the cheese would be dairy, which is
Missing right now.
missing on this plate, yeah. So the only food group we're really missing here is fruit, and that's fine. You don't have to have fruit at every single meal. What you would want to do is, if you substituted out any ingredients, for example, if you don't like broccoli, you could put in a different vegetable. So you'd want to just put in something that's in the same food group. You don't want to take out broccoli and put in cheese, all right? Because then you're changing the nutrition of the whole thing. So you just want to take something out from one food group, put something in from that same food group. Okay, so would you like to taste it? All right, bottom's a little bit burned, so.
I like it.
Okay.
Ask my parents if they can make it sooner or later.
Well,
I'm about to say, or even I can make
You
one.
can make it. You just did half of the work, so yeah. Very, very easy.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I normally have a class or two coming up in the Ellenville area. I can't think of one right now, but I was just at ShopRite doing a cooking demonstration. I plan to be at the Ellenville ShopRite on a fairly regular basis. You can always find me there with a healthy recipe, or possibly at the library or an after-school program coming up.
If you don't mind, can you reiterate where you are located and your email address and your phone number?
Sure, it's actually on the next slide. But my name is Katie Sheehan-Lopez. The program is Eat Smart New York, and we're at Cornell Cooperative Extension of Ulster County. So our office is located in Kingston, but I do cover the whole county, so I come to Ellenville frequently. And if you ever have questions about any of our nutrition programs, you can always call the office, which is 340-3990, and ask for a nutrition educator.
All right, I think that's enough for today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spotlight in Wawarsing. I'm your host, Sean Reed, and this was Katie, and